Te koto te whānau o Auckland Unitarians. Te koto nā manuhiri. No mai, haramai ki tene whare karakia a te atoa. Te koto, te tato katoa. We welcome you to this space made sacred by Auckland Unitarians for 118 years. We know you come here for different reasons: to find community, to seek your spiritual and personal truths, to question, to nurture your heart and soul, to be nurtured, to explore new ideas, to find comfort, and perhaps to find the answers to some of your bigger questions. We know you come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, and different backgrounds. We hope you will find comfort, connection, challenge, and love here. We hope you will find ways to provide outreach to others in our congregation, in our local community, and in our world community. This hour, just try to be present in each moment as it unfolds. Your simple attention is what makes these moments holy. Following the service, we invite you to join us at morning tea. It's our sacrament of hospitality, and it won't be complete without you. Now let us move into worship, willing to be authentic with each other, honest with ourselves, and open to connection in all its forms. My opening words for this Sunday, in which we celebrate Pride Month, my opening words come from an article in the Journal of Seed, which has a subtitle, Science is Culture. The article by Johann Lehr is called The Effeminate Sheep, and it deals with the 450 species of vertebrate and invertebrate animals in which ample same-sex behavior has been cataloged and studied. The biologist Joan Roughgarden, insists that given the pervasive presence of homosexuality throughout the animal kingdom, same-sex partnering must be an adaptive trait that has been carefully preserved by natural selection. So how might homosexuality be good for us as a human species? Well, any concept of sexual selection that emphasizes the selfish propagation of genes and sperm won't be able to account for the non-abundance of non-heterosexual sex. Members of 450 species, including Homo sapiens, have been well documented engaging in frequent same-sex affection. But if traditional, that is, heterosexual readings of evolutionary science are true, all those gay penguins and persons will remain inexplicable. However, if one looks at homosexuality from the perspective of community, one can begin to see why nature might foster a variety of sexual interactions. According to Roughgarden, gayness is a necessary side effect to getting along. Homosexuality evolved in tandem with vertebrate societies in which a motley group of individuals has to either live together or die alone. Indeed, Roughgarden even argues that homosexuality is a defining feature of all advanced animal communities, which require communal bonds in order to function. We are here to celebrate that we have gifts to share, and that we hold such promise. And to know that though we may be wounded We are powerful and worthy, blessed to be different, blessed to be together. So mindful of the responsibility our freedom presses into us, blessed by the beauty of the world, and drawn by a vision of a community known for its honesty, generosity, depth, love, and justice work, we focus our time together by the kindling of light. By the way, you're confusing me. You're not all sitting in your normal spaces. I can't take roll. You over here, you up here. What's going on? You're messing with the minister today. Oh, okay. Everybody's got an excuse. Pride Month in Auckland has always been celebrated in this community. As your minister, I've always invited members of the LGBTQ community to speak to you. For someone who self-identifies as a male-gendered heterosexual, I have not felt it was my place to speak about an experience that wasn't mine. Besides, it has gotten so much more complicated than it was for someone who began puberty in the 50s. Then there were only straights, gays, and lesbians, and the last two were spoken of in mostly darkly derogatory terms, if at all. It is hard to keep up in a world where our understanding of gender and sexual orientation has become more fluid and self-determined, adding ever more letters to the list of those who make up the rainbow community. But this year, after the controversies that have arisen around the Pride Parade, I've decided I might have something to say, especially as a, excuse me, as a lifelong ally of the community. My wider whānau is liberally sprinkled with members who identify with all of the letters, so to some extent it's personal. But theologically and simply as a human being, I am drawn to those who have been oppressed at the margins of society by those empowered and protected by privilege to impugn others' humanity and impoverish their personhood. My bona fides are, I have not only marched and preached and published op-ed pieces in the paper in support of that community, I was a caregiver to a victim of HIV/AIDS in the early days of the epidemic, when doctors and scientists still did not quite know what we were up against. I have chastised both church and state for their discrimination against the community in billboards that went viral internationally. I took my bishop to the Human Rights Review Tribunal for discrimination against a gay man in a committed relationship who desired to be ordained. I was the only Anglican priest in New Zealand willing to defy the bishop's prohibition to officiate at same-sex civil unions. I worked hard with MP Louisa Wall for the passage of her Marriage Equality Act. After it was passed, I was invited to do the first same-sex wedding, but the bishop forbade me, threatening me with being defrocked. So the honor fell to my predecessor at this church, Matt Tittle, to hold that first service here. And now I serve here in a denomination that since 1984 has ordained members of the rainbow community as ministers and performed marriages where the law has allowed and commitment ceremonies where it has not. In New Zealand, while the rainbow community has strong allies in other denominations and faith, ours remains the only one that fully welcomes includes them in all aspects of our common life. I confess to be proud of being one of the countless others seeking to bend the arc of justice, arc of history towards justice for the rainbow community, in whatever small way we can. Now, pride is a challenging emotion to untangle. Is it a sin or a virtue? Fortunately for you, you are in safe hands this morning. With pride and in all humility, I can assure you that I have been theologically trained and have years of scriptural study behind me to sort it out for us with my tongue firmly implanted in my cheek. St. Augustine worried a lot about sin, especially his own. I paraphrase now, but he once famously prayed to be without sin, but not yet. He came up with a list of 7 deadly ones, which Hell Pizza has turned into marketing gold. Pride was first on the list. Augustine put it there based on Eve's eating the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. Her eating of the forbidden fruit and tempting Adam to do the same got them evicted from the Garden of Eden. In the view of the Old Testament, Eve pridefully put herself above God. Yes, women, it is your fault. Your pride has caused all of the troubles for which patriarchy has never forgiven you and continues to punish you. But that's for another sermon. Based on this story, Augustine gave pride primacy in the list of sins. For as he saw it, it was the one from which all the others flowed. It was the one that required God to send his son to die in humiliation on a cross for our pride-induced sinfulness. In contrast, prior to Augustine, Aristotle viewed pride, which he did not equate with hubris, as the crown of virtues. For without it, nothing noble or great could be accomplished. Hubris, on the other hand, was an emotion that allowed naive men to think that by ill-treating or despising others, their own superiority would be enhanced. Psychologists have varied views of pride. But in general, they see pride and self-esteem as tightly entangled, in contrast to the classical Christian theology that sees high self-esteem as the sign of the sin of pride. Psychologist Carl Rogers argues that low self-esteem and self-contempt engender unwarranted pride in oneself. For Rogers, raising self-esteem frees us from shame and guilt, allowing us to take genuine pleasure in real achievements, or what some would call proper pride. For the rainbow community, pride is about rejecting the shame and judgment that has been heaped on them and claiming their sense of self and well-being in an often hostile world. At this point, it would be good to remember that all the labels we put on each other tell us nothing meaningful about anyone as a person. Mark Bellatini, a Unitarian minister and a gay man, explains it this way. Me telling you I'm gay gives you very little information about who I am or what I do. Almost none at all, actually. Remember, the word gay is a political word only. It does not tell you anything about my sexual life, my ways of affection, my style of living at all. You may think it does, but believe me, everyone in this room, including me, have had ideas put in our heads by the vast army of remarkably ignorant people who claim to run this globe of ours. Ideas that even with study, experience, and reading don't entirely leave us. I assure you, these ignorant people are wrong. This is how Jane Hirschberg puts it. It doesn't matter what they will make of you or your days. They will be wrong. They will miss the wrong woman, miss the wrong man. All the stories they tell will be tales of their own invention. Can't be clearer than that. They will be wrong. All of my experience from childhood on confirms that. Nothing said by any negative cleric, politico, or pundit has ever had the slightest thing to do with my experience. They are inventing everything. For the words gay, lesbian, bisexual in particular are political words, not experience words. Politics is a provisional joining together of folks to interpret experience generally, but it is not in any way individual experience, which remains sacred and inviolate and entirely particular. So why this insistence on being wrong about others? The problem seems to lie in a human discomfort with difference. It really upsets some people. People seem to feel that they have more in control if they can lump everyone into some category, good or bad. So they come up with distinct categories which claim to circle human experiences. The category of homosexual was invented by a Hungarian physician named Karoly Benkert in 1869, not a very long time ago. Gay dates from the 1920s, we think. Lesbian goes back further to the 1700s. Sodomy was used from the 5th century to mean both a particular kind of sexual action between any two people and to refer to same-sex sexuality. But before the invention of these categorical words, would you believe that no variant sexuality existed? When Leonardo da Vinci, the great artist and scientist, for example, embraced his partner of life in life of 30 years, Francesco Melzi, he did not think of himself as a gay man or a homosexual. Nor did Eleanor Roosevelt seem to categorize herself as a lesbian when she wrote love letters to Loretta Hickok. All these words are relatively new to the vocabulary of difference. Oh, I'm sure that Eleanor had heard demeaning words applied to women who loved women. And I'm sure that Leonardo knew that some church people thought of him as a sodomite. But both of these folks knew themselves from the inside as tender, loving human beings. Nowhere in their vast collections of surviving expressions do either of them define themselves by how they are different, but rather by the fact that they loved. For it turns out that difference is what allows for relationships in the world. Difference is wonderful. It is necessary. We can take pride in our differences. If we were all the same, we would not have relationships, just shared instincts like bees or ants. We would relate to the world in the same way. We would have no questions for each other. And I'm not even sure love would have any power or sway, since everyone would be the same. Our struggle with difference brings me to the controversy in the rainbow community over whether or not the police should march in the Pride Parade in uniform this year. I know that this will be a shock to Unitarians, but not everybody in that community thinks alike. It became a hot-button issue, not only with the within LGBTQ circles, but in the larger community as well. The result being the police, corporate sponsors, some LGBTQ groups, former allies such as some churches, the Auckland Council, and others withdrew their support. There were heated meetings, votes of no confidence called, and social media was awash with those from both sides taking aim at those they differed with. The end result being a march instead of a parade last Saturday. I was amused and pleased the Pride Board could have enough sense of humor and sense of purpose in place to wear t-shirts that only had rainbow targets on their back. They were prepared not to be afraid of difference, even within their own community. They seemed prepared to work through their differences, to remain in relationship with each other and the broader community. They who have been marked for being different can now take proper pride in their difference. They have modeled for us that there is no love anywhere without our differences. That pride is the virtue which Aristotle saw as ennobling our humanity, giving all of us self-worth granted us at birth. It is not Augustine's pride that would leave us alone and humiliated on a cross of guilt and shame. Amen. Get comfortable for a minute for our meditation. What is it like to be a 22-year-old woman with African and Cherokee roots, hair braided, body athletic, to be the first from her family to graduate from medical school? What is it like to be a 19-year-old man with almost forgotten Appalachian roots, wiry body, tattooed, who broods over a Budweiser after a fight with his girlfriend? What is it like to be a 92-year-old woman with Portuguese ancestry, hair combed and perfumed as she holds her great-great-grandson for the first time? What is it like to be a 30-year-old man with Korean and Chinese ancestry, body thick-muscled and pierced, who just lost his boyfriend of 5 years to a rare cancer that strikes only 1 in 10 million? What's it like to be a 52-year-old woman with Polish ancestry, jovial in spirit, energetic, who loves nothing better than to talk to her kids and grandchildren while playing bridge at the synagogue? What's it like to be a 75-year-old man of Lakota ancestry, face crinkled and golden, still playing jazz piano after all these years at that bar in Jackson, Mississippi? What's it like to be a 40-year-old woman, sleek and bright-eyed, telling her lover of 5 years, Fatima, that the artificial insemination worked and that they are pregnant? What's it like to be you? What's it like to be me? I say any answer not held in the heart of silence for a time is too soon. Too soon. What's it like to be you? What's it like to be me? Who do we remember, mourn, celebrate, and struggle with? Held in the safe arms of this silence, held in the heart of the world, we remember them here, aloud, or hold them in the sturdy crook of our inner silence. What's it like to know peace deep within? What is it like to be strong to love? What is it like to be held in the heart of the world? What is it like to sing? My closing words are by Annie Forster. As far as our love flows, as far as our hope grows, as far as our yearning goes, we are no farther one from another.